Hello my friends and welcome to the Electric Viking. Now, I am a big proponent of investing in electric vehicle companies, specifically the electric vehicle companies that are going to be around in 2030 and are going to dominate the market. BYD, Tesla, and there's a few others. Now, for those of you who are still on the fence, I'm here to tell you that sales of fossil fuel vehicles peaked in 2017. And they're about to hit a very precipitous decline. Now, Charles Morris writes for Evernex that amid much hoopla, the big three US automakers recently joined President Biden to announce they would kind of like 40%, actually they want 50%, of the cars they sell a decade from now to be at least partially petrol. So they're saying they're only going to go for having 40% of their cars being electrified by 2030. And it's a very timid timeline. They're not committing because they're scared to lose profits now. Remember, Chrysler, GM and Ford have enormous amounts of debt. In particular, Ford has enormous amounts of debt, and their debt is rated just above junk. So they're in a very difficult situation, which I like to call a Kodak moment. Now, most EV experts expect the transition to take place much faster than General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler would like it to. And Sandy Munro even says that if the majority of new vehicles in the US are not electric by 2028, that there won't be an OEM in North America. Obviously, he's excluding Tesla from that analysis. But anyway, a recent article in Bloomberg makes the bold assertion that sales of internal combustion engines ICE vehicles have already peaked, so the future of the global auto industry belongs to EVs. Now, we didn't need this article to prove that to us, but anyway, it's good to have it. The article outlines some of the trends that show this prediction, illustrated with a series of bogus graphs. When I say bogus, they're bogus because, well, I'll tell you in a minute why. They're just ludicrous. Anyway, right now, outside of China, EVs are still more expensive than fossil fuels. Fossil fuel powered vehicles, of course, we're talking about. But that won't be the case for much longer, as you know. Bloomberg finds that in Europe, battery EVs are approaching price parity with ICE vehicles, and it's going to happen sooner than they originally thought. On a total cost of ownership basis, driving an EV is already cheaper than driving a comparable legacy ICE vehicle. In fact, Loop Ventures concluded in 2019 that Tesla's Model 3 was slightly cheaper to own and operate over a 5-year period than Toyota's mass-market Camry. Now, Clean Technica has conducted several research studies showing the exact same outcome, but neither Clean Technica nor Loop Ventures really got it quite right because none of them predicted what situation we're in now, where if you'd bought a Tesla vehicle, if you bought a Model 3 4 years ago, it would have lost less than 10% of the original purchase price. If you bought one 2 years ago, you could sell it now for more money than you paid for it. I know it's a strange anomaly, but that's the situation we find ourselves in. Obviously, if you'd purchased a Toyota Camry 5 years ago, well, your resale would have dropped by at least 40%. Now, we can already see signs from manufacturers shelving engine development entirely. The number of manufacturers have announced this: Volkswagen, Audi, numerous companies have said they're no longer working on internal combustion engines. Now, I personally think that battery supply constraints may slow down the transition to EVs. So instead of it happening in completely by 2028, it may happen by 2030. But most people will be willing to wait for their new car rather than buy ancient old technology. Now, once most people have decided an electric car is the way to go because, well, that's the way the trend is going. Most people follow the herd. Most people are actually sheep-like, they just follow the trends. But once they've done this, they won't be willing to settle for an ICE vehicle. And sales of ICE vehicles, second-hand ones, will have lost enormous amounts of resale and will be shocking by 2025. This will lead to many people not wanting to buy an ICE vehicle knowing that its value will fall off a cliff after they've purchased it. Now, if you look at this graph, there's one thing you can be certain of. Bloomberg are 100% wrong. And let's be honest, they're one of the worst and most incompetent financial news sources. Don't depend on them for your news. Go elsewhere. There's better sources for news than Bloomberg. I don't know why anyone would use them, but this 2040 graph will happen well before 2030. It's ludicrous, to be honest. Let's be honest, the economics are so bad for ICE vehicles after 2025. They'll be very difficult to sell for a profit. And by 2027, the era of ICE will be nearing its doomed end, as battery vehicles are so much cheaper than ICE vehicles. It'll just be an incredibly fast shift. So, what are some of the reasons for this? Well, if there's already almost price parity in Europe on cars, then who is going to buy all of these, 50% of expensive ICE vehicles in 2030 that cost more than battery vehicles? Now, there is absolutely zero chance that the car industry will be manufacturing 15 to 20 million ICE vehicles in 2040. They'll be well and truly long gone by then, and just a footnote in history. Now, EVs are getting cheaper very, very quickly. Already, BYD is able to sell their battery-powered vehicles, EVs, on parity with their ICE-powered vehicles. Now, this trend will only accelerate over the next few years. Battery prices are falling. Battery energy density is increasing, and driven by higher demand, massively higher demand, economies of scale, and by improvements not only to the battery technology but also to the manufacturing processes used to produce them. Have a look at Tesla's strong emphasis on the machine that makes the machine. Tesla are not the only company doing that, by the way. Now, contrary to popular belief, passenger cars are likely to be one of the last segments to be fully electrified. Buses and 2- and 3-wheeled vehicles currently boast the top EV adoption rates worldwide. And whether or not we want to believe Bloomberg or not, they expect that trend to continue. Now, consumer choice is growing. As Clean Technical reports, there are more than 500 EV models on the market worldwide. Obviously, not all of those models are in your country. And in some places, there's very little choice. For example, in pickup trucks in the United States, right now, there's basically no choice. But very soon, you'll have Rivian. Then after that, you'll have Ford and Tesla and General Motors and everyone else. The same methodology applies everywhere. It won't be long before Australians have access to electric vehicles, electric trucks. It won't be long before Europeans have access to every market niche in every price bracket to electric vehicles. I'd say within 24 months, there'll be at least 5 times more electric vehicles available on the market, giving way more choice and way more options. Now, one of the reasons for a slower electric vehicle adoption rate, when I say slower, I mean we're looking at adoption rates that are going up by 100% per year or more right now. But one of the reasons is vehicle range. Now, in answer to this, vehicle range is steadily increasing. The average range of a new EV has risen from 103 miles in 2012 to 223 miles in 2020, and it's actually up to around about 250 in 2021. Now, that's a doubling. In fact, that's more than a doubling in the space of only 8 years. Now, if range doubles again, as I've been telling everyone that it will, it most certainly will double. That means we're going from 250 miles in 2021 to 500 miles in another 8 years, right? Well, let's extend that out. Let's give us another year, right, to hit that doubling. Because remember, we more than doubled in the first 8 years. Now we're going to just double in 9 years. So we're giving ourselves a bit of a grace period here. That means vehicle range will be 500 miles in 2030. 500 miles. That is way more than the average. That is way more than 99% of people actually need. Now, Tesla is pushing the range envelope, and this is pushing the other manufacturers to follow suit. Its long-range Model S now boasts a range of a real-world 400 miles. And Tesla has plans of having vehicles that do 1,000 kilometers of range, in addition to other Chinese manufacturers that have recently announced vehicles. BYD have said they're going to do it. The Aeon V. There's other vehicles coming out. Mercedes is aiming for long ranges. You can see it's happening very quickly. You can see the energy density of lithium iron phosphate batteries dramatically improve. They're going to be the batteries of the future. Their cost is lower. Iron is plentiful. Phosphate is plentiful. Lithium is becoming much more plentiful. And they have enormous benefits versus other battery chemistries. So lithium iron phosphate batteries are the batteries of the future. They're cheap, they're affordable, they're plentiful. Now, charging infrastructure. What about that? Well, it's rapidly increasing. In China and Europe, The number of charging locations has doubled in only 2 years, and it's going to continue to double over the next 2 years. And much more is in store. Major new projects are underway all around the world. Remember, Tesla is actually about to open up its supercharger network to all other car manufacturers. So all of these things I've spoken about, these trends, they are accelerating and they are mutually reinforcing. As EVs become cheaper and better, more people will buy them, and increased volume will enable automakers to reduce prices and improve performance still further in a classic virtuous cycle. I've been going on about this for months. It's probably sounding like a broken record. Now, considering all of this, it's surprising to many that Bloomberg's forecast for the triumph of electrons is just as conservative as the roundly ridiculed, timid timeline that the big three just offered. Globally, EVs will represent more than 2/3 of passenger vehicle sales in 2040, writes Bloomberg's Colin McKerracher and Siobhan Wagner. Now, this is CleanTechnica's response. Really? A technology that has already peaked and that is already more expensive and inferior in almost every way is going to hold on to 1/3 of the market in 20 years from now. How do you feel about this? Do you think that's likely? Do you think that these writers have really done their research? I don't think so. Thanks for watching the channel. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye.